26. As always, this is live streaming, and it's quite spur of the moment. But yeah, for today, it's kind of disconcerting the times that we're living in. So I would like to share those times when it had felt like the rug had been pulled from underneath our feet. So, like for instance, um, while I was growing up, I didn't look, you know, comparing the pictures that I have, I didn't look the same. Every year, it would seem that I have different features and resemblance. So it's quite nice to get to know who your forefathers, who your grandparents, and it had felt like I was being denied that certainty, that assurance that everything's okay without the knowledge of who our forefathers had been. So this is the continuous theme of this live streaming, because in the coming days, the dialogues that I would be participating in is in line with the lineage, with ethnicity, and with the origin, who my grandparents had been. That's why, if you know, without their identity, I might as well have come across as an albino, somehow with a skin disease which have been, changing tint and color, and that, yeah, I thought that it was just, I was mistaken. Like the color of my eyes were really a reflection of what I was wearing. So I tried, a different clothings. And yes, it's quite very consistent that the color of my eyes, the iris, they would be a matter of, bioscan entries, and it's very consistent. So I am quite excited to have a chance to meet um, different family members early on, compared to how I had, my first impression that, if you turn out to be, not looking, like being treated as not looking, not sharing the family resemblance, like you don't look like the rest of the family, so you must be adapted, or you must, the common jokes that we had, or napulot ka lang sa basurahan, somebody threw you in the basura, that's trash, and, or that you've been switched in the hospital, you're really not your parents' daughter, you are someone's daughter that, you know, uh, got picked up and then had shared the family name. So you should, you should act like, you should be grateful that you have been, you know give it a chance to become a member of the family, because we truly don't know where you come from. And through science, I have managed to dispel that, which could have been a source of uncertainty and vulnerability. So right now, I am also thankful about how, I have not seen, when I grew up, my paternal grandmother, Lola Josie, was already gone. And she came alive through the stories of my father. So that part of our family, the Chinese, yeah, we came from, um, we have Chinese blood, obviously. And later on in life, when there were um, when there were many unfortunate tales about spies, Chinese spies whose identity had been mixed with the locals to have a Filipino identity, who turned out to be spies for China. Of course, it could send some chill, down the spine, and somehow it could, if those things are not corrected, they could affect the way of life, the way the system will look at me, will treat me. Like my financial transaction would become a suspect, and that if there are problems, immediately, those with records or those who are under suspicion would come under microscope. So, in the paternal side of my family, we have Chinese blood, yes, but um, it's traceable, and none of us is a spy. None of us can pass as a spy. And later on, because my interest had not been um, very contained in our local setting. My interest had been wide and like international, multinational, different culture. So once again, I had encountered that suspicion that somehow, because of my diverse interests, probably what nationality would I have loyalty, if I am not pro 100% um, Filipino, or has loyalty to Philippine culture, to the best interest and national interest of the Philippines, then there must be truth in how, you know, the origin of my financial transactions, my dealings with foreigners. Now I'm getting there, right? My dealings with foreigners, not Filipinos, would become a suspect. So who have I been speaking with that can also be um, part of any suspicious activities of foreign, or those who have been suspected of having mixed loyalty, not just for the Filipino flag, something like that. So by getting to know who, my origin, and that it's very scientific, very, DNA, lineage that is universally acceptable. The mystery of the, the present, where and when, and my dealings with foreigners, Americans, basically, Americans, and whatever other Australians, yeah, English, UK. So there would be enough. Somebody will be truly representing who, and that I will not be relegated to the trash bin of anecdotes, who will be part of the system without being given the benefit of due process. Just because I look different, I may sound different, and over the years, the the color of my skin, the tint, even the shade of my hair, it's becoming different over the years. So it must be on account of our lineage, and it's not, uh, and that the the nature of my work as a writer, as a researcher, intermingling with the locals. Best thing on toast. Yeah. And so, what I'm saying is that, for instance, Lola Josie, she's our Chinese grandmother. I think she's already like 50% Chinese blood. So that will make my father as, because my grandfather came from Mauban, Quezon. So he has his own lineage. My father used to tell me that we should not begrudge him. If we were like, I was 7 years old, eight, I was already being asked um, to stand my ground. Like if he would send me to buy something and that change is not exact, he will not accompany me to the store, but he will expect me to stand my ground, to say my piece to the store owner and say that the change that you've given me, we've been shortchanged. Imagine an 8 years old, 9 years old, and being expected to stand your ground with the store owner. uh, so that's how I was born. So if you have children and you have trained your children that way, you have raised your children that way, and when they grow to become a fully matured men and women, can you expect it to somehow be different, to vary um, the way that you have raised them? That was how we were raised, actually. So but it's different with cousins, of course. And like during the time that I could not produce the exact amount of change, and I had to like 3 times, 4 times, I had to plead my case to the store owner because my father just won't accept that we have been shortchanged. Kulang ang sukli. And I was a girl at 9 years old, 10 years old. And to stand my ground to my father, who had expected me to come up with an exact change, and to stand my ground to the store owner, I was torn between the rock and a hard place. So that was how I was brought up, how I was raised. And it came from, because my father said, that was the way my Chinese mother had raised us. So that part of the Chinese lineage was responsible for it. So when it's our turn to do that, of course, we can choose which of the parents' legacy would be practical, would be applicable. Because nowadays, the child abuse is very under vigilant, hyper vigilant. There are authorities that forever ban, corporal punishment or something like that. And like, for instance, if we would come out of the bathroom without towel, and we would just shout, "Towel! We're done!" And we forgot to bring towel with us in the bathroom. He said, if we had done that with our mother, oh boy, they would get, uh, they would be, of course, there's corporal punishment. That was how they were brought up. So somehow with me, somehow I had adapted those a semblance of how our parents had been brought up. But it was the turn of the modern times where there is hypervigilance on the role of physical punishment to children. So I got in hot water, part of my record as being a single parent was that beginning of how I was raised by my own parents until my attention was called to it that you are not supposed to, spank your daughters because it can be chalked against you as, child abuse. So that was also the beginning of, the spy, being an abusive mother. So those were the things that I was able to achieve to defend myself from. So that is already part of my record actually now. And the but one good thing about it right now is that will my American guests, yes, I have um, a relationship with an American. Beauty of this sister is still looking good. Thank you. Um, Part it's filter. The filter is a good. Uh, it's very kind to women. Well, anyway, part of the rite of passage for any visitor that I will have here in the Philippines, or vice versa, if I will be the one to visit and to be part of a dialogue or proceeding, are those records that will not be part of the official track record of yours truly, because I have managed to um, separate myself, and I had managed to explain myself where I was coming from. So, as a single mother, I was very strict because my parents had been that strict to me. And we sometimes we become a parent out of the way our parents had been to us, right? So the level of discipline that I had employed to get them in line, because I was solo and I had three daughters, and we had to play because there's no man in the house except my brother, of course, to which I am thankful for his presence. But still, it was very visible how one day he would marry and have his own families, and that would be his priority. So I had it in my mind for us not to feel the lack of having a man in the house, a father to my children. So I had to be both the mother and the father. And being a disciplinarian, I was able to um, explain where I was coming from for the kind of discipline that I had, like while they were growing up. And I would be relating how I was brought up, and I didn't turn out so bad, and my daughters didn't turn out so bad. So we had subscribed to a very old-fashioned, old school, which if we had continued it, it would have gotten us in trouble with the authority, especially in the US, where the emotional being of the children had become so very what prioritized, that there are actually part of the system, the government, to truly listen to how the child is would like to be known as, to choose the gender. But in our generation, that is a no-no. So, living in the reality of times, even though I still believe that a good old-fashioned discipline is the best, but with the times that we're living in, we don't want unnecessary stress and problem with the authorities. So we navigate with those realities. And that is how I guess I was able to present myself not as an abusive mother who had resorted to disciplines, not as a spy, even though we have, Chinese lineage and other migrant and other probably down the line, the generation that first came here in the City, and that my loyalty, of course, our Lord Jesus Christ, which will not tolerate, hurting any government, being an agent of another government, something like that. And so, with the system in the past, where an action and then before being asked, the due process anyway. The due process. I had the raw deal of experiencing how it is to be suspected without observing the natural course of the due process. And as I step out into the system of other countries using the diplomatic corridor, the consulates, in order also, to get to know the family that I have come from, the lineage, YouTube, the lineage, yeah. There is a certainty and self-assurance that even though I may look, you know, different, and that um, somehow um, there is that nagging doubt about being a real daughter of your parents. That much has been settled through science, DNA. And so the legacy that they have um, given me, that allowed me to become who I am now, I am standing on it. And that for other, for other viewpoints that will affect me and the rest of the family, how I should, conduct myself, the views and the values that I have a very concrete legal position to stand on. I have a very clear narrative as to the way my parents had reared me, had disciplined me, had raised me. Very strict and very, now yeah, the right word has finally allow me to be grateful even for the times that I didn't like it. It was very empowering. They, at an early age, they did not shelter me from some of the responsibilities that other parents would frown and would regard as cruel and harsh, but which I am now um, enjoying as part of my psyche, as part of my consciousness and subconsciousness, not to wield with the harsh words that come with tough love. Tough love. So now that I can, through the help of my legal counsel, I feel that we can stand to any kind of scrutiny that can come down the line. And I would like to be known as the person who had um, sorted them out peacefully, not by avoiding and not by passing the buck. Um, when when these things were happening, 2003, 2004, my participation had been through the cell phone, very indirect. The thoughts of my mind, the thought process, whether I was right in the mind, whether I was, my IQ, my EQ, any kind of disorder that can warrant guardianship. So all these things have been part of the reality that are now going to be classified whether as anecdotal or as part of the local system. And it's very unavoidable that I will be part of our local gazette. I am a writer, the authorship and the intellectual property would, yeah, I mean, the current leadership has the last say whether I will be part of the roster of like local artists who come from the Lucena City, or I will not be claimed or somehow disowned. If I will be disowned, then because of my lineage, some doors had opened for me, disowned by one and treated as one of our own by another. And that is, I believe, God's blessing, that recognition of the prerogative of each person and of the like the officials to exercise whatever will be the national interest or the interest of the place, like the local culture. Probably, by giving me some sort of patronage, I would be diluting the culture that they are proud of. I don't know. This is just, I'm just thinking out loud. But for any kind of reason that my intellectual property rights and the way that um, um, the roster and the database for the copyrights and intellectual properties will not be honored here, and I will not be part of even a footnote of the history of this place. I will not be given any kind of acknowledgement. It would be, you know, I would accept it peacefully and I will not take it against them. But there is also that which will also be part of the history wherein um, another culture will welcome me as their own. Another um, another place will be more accommodating and will give me a chance to be myself, and benefit of the doubt that I truly do not have um, any bad intention, just by asserting myself, just by being myself. That throughout, since this problem with my identification had came up, that was 2003, 2004, up to now, there isn't one kind of trouble or unrest that can be attributed to me. And that is my record as I make, as I present myself to the different consulates and different embassies for proper, for their proper and personal assessment. So I carry to myself the genes and the proof of being the descendant who had been raised here in Lucena City, who had grew up here, and as part of the lineage and legacy of our forefathers. Yeah, I know that with God's grace, it will be open for someone like me, and that I truly respect the decision of the leadership of the province of Quezon here in the Philippines, Republic of the Philippines, what or how they want to regard yours truly, my work, and my own part, a very, very humble part that can affect and influence other members of the community, or how my own family will be allowed to live their life, and make their own, um, carve their own niche in the future. So this is it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys through the consulates and through the embassies. Bye for now.